My father serves in the Army. In one of his years of service, he was assigned a mission, and we relocated to a military barracks on the outskirts of the city. At that time, I was 18 years old and spent my nights studying for university entrance exams. We lived in organizational houses provided by the Army to my father. The organizational houses were about 120 square meters and had a hallway from the front door to the storage room. Next to the storage room were two bedrooms. These military houses were located in a handmade forest area designed for camouflage. At night, the sounds of crickets, owls, dogs, and other animals could be heard. The houses were block style, with each part designated for a rank in the Army. One night, as I lay awake and contemplative, staring at the ceiling of my bedroom, I saw a shadow fall on the ceiling of my bedroom. Since the hallway light was always on for us to navigate to the bathroom easily, it didn't surprise me much because I thought it might be my parents returning from the bathroom. However, suddenly the situation became stranger for me. As that figure moved towards the storage room, its shadow fell onto the curtain of my room, and I saw a short figure with completely bent legs enter the storage room. I was so astonished that I wondered where this person had come from and what they were doing. I went towards my parents' bedroom, but when I saw both of them sleeping, I realized they couldn't be the ones. With fear gripping me, I returned to my bedroom, pulled the covers over myself, and tried to sleep. The next day, I recounted what I had seen to my parents. Upon hearing my words, they chuckled. My father said, "Son, a soldier must be brave. Perhaps you just had a dream or an illusion." But this strange occurrence kept repeating for me, reaching a point where I couldn't sleep at night out of fear. My parents decided to spend one night in my bedroom with me, with my permission, to show me that I was just having nightmares and that there was no mysterious creature involved. My mother, with her loving touch, caressed my hair and told me stories like she used to when I was a child. With her tender hands and affection, I drifted into a deep sleep. However, my peaceful sleep was shattered by my mother's scream and my father's gunfire. My father had aimed at that shadow, but none of his shots hit it. I should mention that my father was a very skilled marksman. I woke up abruptly and saw my mother clinging tightly to my father, telling him she wouldn't stay in that house for another moment. The next morning, my father requested a transfer, and considering my mother's distressed state, she agreed to it. We returned to our home in the city, but even after years have passed, this mystery remains for me and my family like a secret. This story is related to the years I lived in my grandparents' house. I went home one day after boring work. My grandparents were dressed and waiting for me to go to my aunt's house together. I told them, "Let me shower and get ready." Grandpa said, "As long as you don't take too long." I took a bath. My grandparents were waiting for us to go together. My bath lasted half an hour to 40 minutes. I came out of the bathroom and saw my grandfather sitting and not ready. I said, "Get ready to get dressed and dry my hair." I went and put on my clothes. I came and saw that he was not in the house. I checked the whole house and saw that my grandfather's cell phone was not in the room, and I thought to myself that maybe they had left by themselves. I called his mobile number and said, "Why didn't you wait for us to go together?" What he said created a strange fear in my heart. He said, "You went to the bathroom. 20 minutes later, we went to Aunt's house." So who was the one I saw and told you to be ready? I got a bad fright, but I calmed myself down and told myself that maybe it was just my fatigue and illusion. I turned off the lights in the house and left only the kitchen light on so that the house is not dark. I went and opened the door. The kitchen is facing the entrance door. I saw my grandfather looking at me with unusual round eyes and an unusual smile. I don't understand how I locked the door and ran out of the house. I just remember that I was running in the street with fear, and I didn't dare to look behind me. After this incident, I never entered that house out of fear. This incident happened in one of the old and small villages, and it goes back to the evening of a day when it was raining heavily and the weather was getting dark. I was alone at home. My husband hadn't come home yet. The rain was really heavy, and I was impatiently waiting for my husband to come back, and I was staring at the courtyard door when suddenly I heard a sound. Happy to see my husband, I took the umbrella and happily went to the courtyard door. And I opened the door. I saw a young man and woman standing in front of the door without an umbrella, and they were very wet. They told me that we are strangers, and if you please let us come and stay in your house until the rain stops. I knew that if my husband found out that I didn't let him come, he would be upset. I happily said yes, let him come. When they wanted to enter the house, they did not take off their shoes and entered the house with wet clothes and shoes. What I saw with my own eyes, I would not have believed if someone else had told me. The house was not dirty at all. The whole village was muddy, and even the yard was dirty because of the rain. I was a little scared when I saw such a situation. I told them to sit down. Now I will go to the kitchen and bring you tea. Instead of going to the kitchen, I knocked on the neighbor's door. I went inside until the neighbor woman opened the door and told her the story. The woman next door said, "Let's go to your house together. Don't be afraid." When we came out of the neighbor's house, we saw two sheep walking in front of our house. The neighbor's woman said, "Who are these sheep?" They went out under this heavy rain. I told her to let the sheep go. Let's go. We went there and searched the entire house, but found no trace of the young man and woman. I was speechless and had to tell my neighbor, "Oh my God, they were here," who jumped in the middle of my speech and said, "Yes, you are right, and I should have understood that those two sheep are the same young man and woman. When my husband came, I told him the story, and he said, 'Thank God that nothing happened to you.'" Our story begins when the personal belongings of the daughter of the family who has just got engaged start to go missing. From her earrings, which she found in the same place after 2 months, to her other personal belongings, which she told her family, they don't believe her and say that you left them somewhere and forgot where you left them. One day, this girl's family goes to their private villa, which was in a beautiful place, and after the birthday party that the girl's fiance threw for her, all the guests leave and her parents go to their bedroom. In his mother's bedroom, a helium balloon hung on the wall. His mother loved that teddy bear very much and could not sleep without it. The girl goes to bed. While talking to her fiancé in bed on the phone, she realized that the helium balloon that was in her mother's bedroom had come to her room. When the girl sees this balloon in her bedroom, it moves as if someone has tied a string to it and is moving it back and forth. He becomes speechless and the phone falls from his hand. She hides her head under the blanket in fear and hardly makes it through the night to the morning. And in the morning, her parents are worried about their daughter's absence at the breakfast table, and they rush to their daughter's bedroom. The first thing that catches their attention, Curd, was a helium balloon. When her mother turned on the nightlight last night, she remembered that she had hung that balloon on the wall of her room. They called their daughter. Hearing the voice of her parents, the girl took her head out from under the blanket and opened her tongue and told them the story with a trembling voice. Now they believe their daughter's words and realize that their daughter is surrounded by an inhuman and mysterious force. So they try not to leave their daughter alone. In a cold and mountainous village where it snowed a lot, so that for several months everywhere was covered with snow, and the agricultural and construction work was inevitably closed, and the women and men of the village worked in a walnut processing factory and peeled walnuts. They received a daily amount. In this village there was a woman named Sarah, who is not alive now, and did not marry after her husband's death, and lived alone in the house that was her husband's inheritance. He had to work for his living. Mrs. Sarah's work was such that she would leave the house early in the morning at 5 o'clock and work in the same place with several other women, but one day their place of work changed. The woman next door makes an appointment with Sarah Kanoum that we will follow you tomorrow at 5 in the morning to go to our new place of work. Sarah slept early at night, and he fell into a deep sleep. There was a lot of snow that night. Suddenly there was a knock at the house of Mrs. Sarah, and without looking at the clock or measuring the time, Mrs. Sarah put on her shawl and hat, put on her gloves, put on her things, and went to the front door to go to work with the neighbor's wife, as she said. When he reached the front door of the house, he saw his colleague. They closed the door, and he started walking behind the neighbor's wife to go to her workplace. Had arrived, Sarah Kanoum had to put her foot in the footsteps of her colleague so as not to lose the way. Mrs. Sarah walks a little way in the snow and walks away from the house. She sees nothing but her colleague's footprints. The further she goes, she sees that her colleague's footprints are getting bigger and bigger, so that her colleague's footprints are twice as large as her footprints. It becomes a human being, Mrs. Sarah wonders. Little by little, the traces of fear and worry appear on his face. He sees himself in a world that is not like the world of humans. Little by little, illusion, fantasy, and reality are mixed together. He feels that his body has become very cold and his surroundings are filled with scary creatures. When his feet hit the branches under the snow, he felt that there was a creature that wanted to bite his feet. He changes his direction towards home. Some way back, he doesn't see any traces of his and his colleagues' footprints. He leaves himself in the hands of an ambiguous fate and takes his scary steps higher to reach home. He walks in a halo of fear of the blackness of the village. And finally, after walking in the snow for a while, he reaches the door of his house, and to his surprise, he sees the neighbor's woman standing in front of the door waiting for him. And when he sees his colleague, he asks himself, "Who was it that came after me?" Again, fear overcomes him. He is afraid and does not approach the woman. The voice of the woman next door brings him to his senses. His colleague looks at his watch and says to Sarah, "I have been waiting for you for exactly 15 minutes now. Where have you been? Have you spent the night at your relative's house?" "No, I have been in my own home. So where do you come from now?" Sarah told the story to her colleague. His colleague said that I was at home from night to morning at 5 o'clock. His colleague says that you did a good job and came back. That creature was not a human at all, but a genie who disguised himself as me and was taking you with him.